types of data. They are how data are stored on in your JavaScript, or how data are used in your JavaScript. And I said something in our last class that we have how many types of data types? How many types? Students are here. Mr. Kelvin. 3. What are 3? No, that's a subtype inside the major type. So we said that, like I said that there are how many, there's like I gave a particular amount of data type. You want to try, Miss Favor? The other English is, sorry? Non-primitive. That's the other type. So you have two types. You have two types. Exactly. So you have two types of data types. The first is primitive data type. Primitive rather. Primitive and non-primitive. So these are the two types. And what do you mean by primitive? Primitive data types are actually the built-in data types that you have. So when we talk about primitive, right? We're talking about what's the name? Talking about the built-in data types in JavaScript. So when I say built-in data types, DT, right? Now, in JavaScript, you have some people say 7, some people say 6, but me, I say 5. Some of us will say 5. And there's a reason for that. Because in the end, some of these things are just built on those 5, right? So we have 5 types, right? You have the first is string, second is number, the third is Boolean, the fourth is undefined, right? In fact, sometimes I'll say 4, but undefined. Then the last is null. Sometimes I feel like this null is just similar to undefined, and I'll give you my reason very soon. So now let us talk about these 5 types of primitive data types. Some people still say symbol, but I don't think symbol is, yeah, it might be a data type, but it is still going to it's still kind of based on the rest. You cannot actually just define a data type with symbol. It's not possible. It still has to be based on either string or some other stuff. But let us leave symbol. It's probably a data type, but I do not think it should be classified as a primitive data type. So now let's go into string. When we talk about string, we're talking about any character. So if you say any character in quotes is a string. So what do I mean by quotes? This is the quotes that I'm talking about. So any character that you see in quotes. Now we have 3 types of quotes. First is what we have, this double quotes. The second one is the single quotes. Then the last one is what is the backticks. Now, any character or any data that you see in these 3 in these 3 let me increase it. In these 3 quotes, it's called a what? It's called a string. Again, any character you see in the double quotes, single quotes, or the backticks is called a string. Now, how do we know this particular polybyte is a what? String. Why? Because the type of data is it's inside quotes. And why do we use string? We use string because sometimes you just want to write certain characters. You want to make sure that whatever it is you are writing has meaning. You understand? So for instance, the name of the user has to be stored in a string because we want it to have meaning. I cannot go ahead and say, oh, let me remove this one. I cannot go ahead and say Paul Levites. This is not correct. This is not even a data type. It's going to treat this as a variable. You understand it now? So basically what you're trying to say, let full name equals to Paul, right? This gap here is saying that these 2 things are 2 different things. So if I want to bring them together, I have to put an underscore. Now, what I'm just saying is saying that let full name equals to Paul Levites. Now, what your JavaScript is going to think about here is that, oh, that means I'm going to store Paul Levites as an undefined variable. I'm already going advanced. Let me calm down again. So I said let full name, right? Before I said Paul Levitt in quotes. But right here now, it is trying to tell me that if you do not put anything in quotes, it is going to treat that thing as a what? As a data. No, as a variable, not as a data. Do you understand it now? So now it's trying to tell you right now, have you stored Paul Levitt to any value before? No. That means Paul Levitt is now what? Undefined. That's where undefined comes in. Get to that place. Now, what I have to do here to turn this into a data is put it in what? In quotes. Now, this becomes a what? String. So a string is a type of data in your JavaScript. I need you to understand that. So if you do not put anything in quotes, that is a problem. It's going to turn that into a variable rather than a data. So, and it's always going to be undefined. So your data is going to be useless until you define that particular data. You have a question? Yes. It's a number. So now that brings me to my next point, which is of number. So your number is just your normal number. So you can have age equals to 25, 30, 35, 40, or dates. You can put the although dates usually stored in a string. Don't worry, we'll get that. We'll get it later. But that is basically what your number is. Your number is just saying you want to have a number. And in JavaScript, there's something that you need to know. See, when we talk about programming, right, we have a lot of programming languages and their syntax, but they are all similar. Now, in C++, right, you have the data types. You'll be seeing data types like a moment, please. Okay, now in C++, right, you see things that going from. Okay, let's continue. Now, in C++, you see data types like so they'll say one is character, so you see char, then you see int, you see trying to even remember some of these things. Is it float? Then you have a lot of them. I'm trying to I think this Python. I'm trying to remember some of the distance that you have. Now, let us remove this chart. We don't need this chart. So you also have can't really remember some of them. But let us talk about int and float. Now, in your normal numbers, right, you have whole numbers, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are whole numbers. Then you now start having something like 5.3. This is no longer a whole number. This is a decimal place number. Now, in this place, if you are using languages like C++ or Python, you cannot store them in the same type of data type. Now, in Python, this 1, 2, 3 is known as a what? As an integer, meaning it's an whole number. Then the 5.3 is known as a what? As a float. But the beauty of JavaScript is that all of these things are now brought together inside one, which is now what? Number. So if I'm trying to define a particular data type or anything, I don't have to define them separately. All I have to do is define them into a number, and then they're all defined. But in your other languages, I have to call them other languages, you have to define, first of all, the variable for it, and then you go ahead and write it. For instance, if I'm trying to define my number now, this particular age, I can say int age, right, equals to what? 99, right? That means you have to remember all of these things. If I'm trying to define this 5.3 now, I can now say float age equals to what? 5.3. Now you see how exhausting that's going to be, because you have a lot of them. But right now, you don't even have to define it. All of them are now what's regarded as number. All you have to do is set your const age equals to what? 99. That's it. They are all regarded as numbers. Now, why am I explaining this? I'm explaining this so you understand how easy and how less complicated JavaScript has actually made its data types. All right, moving on. That's basically what numbers are. So numbers are the normal way of writing your numbers. Now, we have Boolean. which is going to be very hard to explain, but I need to understand that booleans are basically the true or false value of of your data. The true or false value of a particular expression in a particular data. So let me give us a very simple example. So now, let's say you have let's x equals 10, right? Let's perform like a little bit of arithmetic here or mathematics. So let y equals 20. Now let us compare both values. Let's check to see if y is greater than x or x is greater than y. So whichever is greater is going to print out true. You understand it now? So let us say if x is what greater than y, what do you want? Print true, right? Let's just say console.log. Console.log true, right? Else, do not worry about this syntax. We'll definitely get here. Else, if y is greater than what? X. What do I want? I want to have console.log truth. Console.log truth. Now, so we're going to say true. X is greater than y. Then in this place, I'm going to say true, y is greater than x. All right, now what am I saying now? I said let x equals to 10, y equals to 20. Now, if x is greater than y, and is x greater than y? No. What I want you to console.log true. X is what greater than y. But if y is greater than x, which is what the truth value, what are you going to get? True y is greater than what? X. Now, if you check out the distance, what do you say? True y is what greater than x. Now, that is basically what your Boolean is saying. Your Boolean basically what defines the true or false value. Now, we're going to get into Boolean in details. We talk about Boolean very, very well. So do not worry about that. That's something that we'll talk about in the coming lessons. But do you understand what Booleans are? I know that's what going to give us a lot of. Do you understand Boolean? Yes, value. Yes. Is it clear to everybody? What's the question? Yes. False. Yes. Yeah, you can actually do any one of them. I can say false here. I can put false. I can even put true here. Right? I don't want to go into writing like into writing much bigger syntax to automatically detect which one is true or not, which is going to like be a little bit confusing, right? So we can just write false here. You understand? Then we can also write true here. But we all know what is going to get printed out, which is going to be what? False. Why? You understand? I'll explain operators today. Of course, what you will get here is false. Now, the reason why it got false is because there is a mathematics here. The mathematics is that if x is greater than y, console.log true. But if y is greater than x, console.log false. But in reality, y is what greater than x. So the one that's going to print out is the one to be false. But it does not necessarily mean that it's a false value. No. It's just trying to say that, okay, this is what you told me to do, and I'm going to garbage in, garbage out. I'm going to, if I exchange it to what should be true now, what we're going to have is what? True and true. And I change here to false. What we're going to have now is F, yes. What we're going to have now is what? True. Why? Because I've changed the syntax. Do you understand it? Do you understand what I just did? Y is greater than what? 20 is greater than 10 now. But the condition is that if X is greater than Y, print out false. But if Y is greater than X, print out true. So what's going to get printed out? The true. Is a condition. Don't worry. This is something that we'll still do. Conditional statements. We'll also talk about this later on. But for now, I need to understand that when we talk about booleans, we're only talking about for the true or false value of something. I'm going to also give examples of boolean later. But for now, do we understand string, number, and boolean? Is it clear to us? Don't worry about writing this if statement, please. Just understand boolean to be true or false value. Now, moving on, right? I did not take my time to explain these three quotes that I explained before. I said in your string, you have three major signs. You have your double quotes, single quotes, and what backticks. Double quotes, single quotes, backticks. Now, when we talk about double quotes, right, we're talking about the standard way of writing strings. Double quotes and single quotes are actually standard way of writing strings. So what am I saying? In this place, I can say let class equals to what? Front end. Or let's say let class 1 equals to front end. Can't use class. Class is a reserved keyword. So if I now say let class 2 equals to what? Back end. So I'm going to use single quotes. Back end. So as you can see, I can actually use single quotes. I can actually use single quotes and double quotes. But now the problem with single quotes is now if I'm not trying to write an S. Sorry. So let's say we want to say Paul's phone or Paul's laptop, right? And I'm not trying to put an apostrophe again. S. This gives an error. Why? Because look at it. It doesn't actually make sense. What they're trying to say is that the only one that is not going to be the string is now this backend. This S has now been escaped. Do you understand it now? So, like that, you are going to have a lot of trouble. Do you understand it now? So, the best thing to do is wrap everything up in a what? In a double quote. So, I can now easily put my apostrophe. So, I will never advise you to use a single quote. Always use double quotes. Now, you now have backticks. Backticks are now like that string that gives is that syntax that gives your string additional information, not information, additional functionality. Now, backticks rather allows for string interpolation, allows for multi-line. Let me explain what I'm trying to say. For instance, if I'm trying to say let new class equals to. So in this place now, as you can see, I do not have any HTML element, right? But with my backticks, I can actually create an HTML element. So I can just go ahead and say, put this backticks here, and I can create a div. So let's say div, right? Then in my div, I'm just going to go ahead and create an H1. The H1 says welcome. So if I save it up now, you're not going to see it yet. But let me now go ahead and I'm going to come here and I'm just going to create a div also in this place, and I'm going to give this a class of create. Right now, in this place, let me split my screen. Where's this? Okay, good. Now, in this place right here, now I'm not going to go ahead and call that this thing into my code. So I can now have let new class. No. Let's create. I don't know what to call it. Equals to document dot get elements by ID. Sorry, dot query selector rather. I'm going to call it dot create. Right, dot create. Wait. So now all I have to do is now say new class I'm going to have yes. Okay. Trying to remember this in that. Hey God. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Just a moment. Am I forgetting my syntax? Come on. Okay. Let me do it another way. I think I just made a mistake here. Okay, so what did we do here? We created let's create equals document dot create selector dot value. I do not need this value right here. So I'm going to remove this value. So I'm just going to go ahead and come right here. So I'm going to say let's create equals to let me remove this. So we're gonna have documents. Okay, let me copy it out first. Document dot query selector, right? Then we're gonna have backticks, rather, in this place. Then in the backticks, we're gonna have it's actually not what. Okay, let's just create a div. Oh, okay. Let's create a div. Sorry, I think I know what I know the problem. So let's create equals to this. I'm gonna remove this. So create equals to what? Document the query selector. Now we're gonna have a div. Now in this div, I'm just gonna write welcome. This should actually work. Okay, that's a question. What's wrong? So reference creates. Okay, good. So let's create equals to let's create something. So now it's and it should actually work. I don't understand why it's not working. Okay, so let's check it out now. This should work. So as you can see, we have what the H1 welcome. So what am I doing now? What I'm saying is that in this place, we use a string. This is also a string. So if you check it out, it's a string. But what did I use here? I used what? Backticks, as you can see. So what backticks allows, now I'm not, this is something I was still going to get to. What backticks allows, so when you say backticks, what you use them for is first, use them to what? For string interpolation, which we'll also get to, string interpolation. Then we'll also use them for multi-line string creation, right? And apart from that, we also use them for what? Additional string functionality. Additional string functionality. Now, these are what we use backticks for. So now, I think I've gone a bit further than I wanted to. So I'm going to just come back a little bit. These are things that we're definitely going to do in details. So do not worry about them. But for now, understand that you have what? Three three quotes. The first is what? The double quotes, single quotes, and then what you have your backticks. We'll talk about backticks in details very, very, very soon. All right. So um I think that's all for primitive data types, right? But then we have two more that we'll be talking about. Undefined and null. Undefined and null are pretty much the same thing in my books, right? Pretty much the same thing. So I'm not going to explain undefined, and then I think you should understand null by that time. Now, when we talk about undefined, we're talking about a particular variable that does not have a defined value. So what am I saying? If I say let age, right? What have I just done? Let me remove this age here because it's going to give us a lot of confusion. Now, if I say let age, what has just happened right here is that what? Yes, I've declared age, but age has not been assigned to any value, has it? No. Now that means it is now what? Undefined. Is this thing canceling? Now that simply means that what? Age has now been yes, it now has a value. No, sorry, it has been declared, but it has not been defined. That it does not have a value. That's the meaning of undefined. So what am I saying now? If you check, if I go ahead and say console.log, I don't even understand why it's doing this. So if I say console.log age, what do I have? And let us check it out together. So what we have now is what? Can you see it? Undefined. Why do we have undefined? First of all, age has been declared. Yes, but it has not been assigned. So anything that does not have an assigned value is undefined. And that's what null is similarly. So uh, I did not even open our course outline today. So let me open it up so I can read out something there. So now, basically, again, like I said, that is what your undefined is talking about. So undefined is saying, oh, this particular value, this particular variable, yes, has been declared, but has no assigned value. You've not assigned any value to it. That's what undefined is. So first of all, we talked about string. String is anything that has quotes. We talked about number. We talked about Boolean, which is a true or false value of a particular variable. Then now we talked about what? Undefined, which is saying, oh, a particular variable has been declared but has no value. Now, this brings me to my first point. When I was saying, if you remove this, what's the name? If I remove this double quotes now and I just say Paul underscore Levites, what happens right here now is that okay, yes, full name is there, right? It has been declared. And you have actually assigned a value to full name. But the value you assign to full name is not a data. It is a what? A variable. Yes, you've not declared this variable. But right now, if I go ahead and say console.log full name, so now let's check it out. Console.log full name, check what happens, check what you get in this thing. Polybyte is not defined. Do you understand? That means, yes, you've assigned a variable, but the variable you assigned to full name is not defined. You see, I did not tell you that full name is not defined. Let's check it out again. Please, I need everybody to understand this. See, in this place, it said, let full name equals to Polybyte. But what did you print out to the console? Full name. Now, what is it trying to tell you in the console? It's trying to tell you that what? Polybyte is not defined. But what is actually the variable? Full name. So it's trying to tell you that full name has been defined and assigned the value of what? Polybyte. But that polybyte is not defined because it's a variable and not a data. See it. Let me show you again. Can you see? This is a variable. I did not put it in quotes. So it's actually a variable, but it has not been defined anywhere. Now, for it to work, I cannot say, okay, now let us not define polybyte and say let polybyte equals to what? So let's say I'll just say tutor. You understand? Now, what is going to come out? The value of what? Tutor. So can you see it? Tutor. That is basically what it's saying. So now, this also brings me to another point that you can also assign variables to variables. So first of all, we defined what for Levite equals to tutor here. Then I assign full name to what for Levite. And as you can see, what is coming out when I printed out full name tutor, because this initially this value is now what that of full name. Now, this is basically what you need to understand, going into data types. It's very, very important that we all get all of these things. So is it clear to us? So those online, is it clear? Any question so far? Do you have questions or anything I teach you feel like you do not understand? You can always ask me now. Mr. Pius and Mr. Vincent, is it clear to you? Okay, so now that's one thing about strings and the rest of that. Now we'll be going into something different apart from strings. Now we'll be talking about operators, which is something that everybody should know as a developer. So operators. Now, under operators, we have let me give us time to like write what we've done before moving into operators. So I'm going to pause the recording here. It was